Welcome to the Heart of the Cards, a conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what we're dealt. With your hosts, Dan Green and Eric Stuart.
Welcome to the Heart of the Cards. I'm joined by the amazing Eric Stuart, songwriter, singer of the Eric Stuart Band, as well as the voice of many characters that you love and the director of many shows that you love.
Oh, thank you so much. And once again, I am here with my dear friend Dan Green, great voice actor, director. Let's see, what else? That's right. He also is an amazing writer and incredible artist. And what I hear, a good chef. But I haven't had anything that he's prepared yet. But I'm going to ask him on our next convention to cook me a meal.
When he doesn't appear the second day of the convention, you'll know why.
Yes.
Food poisoning's a bitch.
Yeah. Anyway, good to be back with you.
Yeah, as always. And this episode's a little different. We're finally able to address some of the letters from our listeners.
I'm excited that we have letters from our listeners. I think I'm very humbled and flattered.
I'm super excited by listeners and listeners that actually contribute to the conversation. That's even better.
Yeah.
This is a little similar to how when we had our episode about Kazuki Takahashi, the first episode we released, and I asked people to, on Twitter, write about how his work affected their lives. Mm-hmm. And some of these letters are more depthful than others, but they're all very much appreciated. And we'll make this a regular thing that we do, I don't know, maybe once a month or however long it takes for letters to accumulate. But please do share your own journey about inspiration, creativity, and dealing with what you're dealt, or just share anything else you'd like to share with us. Go to adramataproductions.com and you'll be able to submit your letter there. And we'll get to it eventually, if not right away.
Mm-hmm.
So, without any further ado, Eric, would you please reach into our mailbag and share the first letter that we're going to address today?
Sure, hold on. No, not that one. Okay, yeah. I'm not looking. I'm just reaching.
Don't get a paper cut.
Yeah, okay, here's one. I love this in terms of who it's from. This is from Wham Bam Duel. Yeah, exactly. An interesting family name. They write, "Hello, Eric Stuart and Dan Green. I've been a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Since I was 6 years old. Now, at the age of 19, that has not changed in the slightest. In fact, it's only become stronger. My favorite character by far, sorry Dan, was Seto Kaiba."
What? Okay, move on. Let's move on to the next letter.
I just picked it randomly out of the bag.
Sure.
Sorry, let's pick up there. His in-your-face attitude was one that always made me laugh. And while Yugi, Atem, and their friends taught me the value of friendship and unity, I think a lot of people overlook the fact that the characters of the Kaiba brothers teach the importance of family. No matter who your family is, even if you're whittled down to just yourself and your younger brother, those are the people that you must be willing to do just about anything for. A lot of people criticize Kaiba's character for standing on the edge of the castle at Duelist Kingdom. Hey, I didn't write the episode.
I know I criticized
him.
it.
I know. I didn't write the episode. Essentially threatening to throw away his life if he couldn't beat Yugi. But to him, I always saw it as Kaiba not wanting to live in a world where he couldn't save his brother.
A Kaiba apologist. Okay, I got it.
Interesting. Nice connection. A lot of people see Kaiba as this terrible person who, quote, hates friendship, end quote, is some rich jerk and all. But neither he nor anybody for that matter is that one-dimensional. Even when I watched Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout my childhood, that lesson from Kaiba always stuck out to me and led me to keep a strong bond with my brothers. A bond that I will never allow to collapse. A bond that I will challenge Maximilian Pegasus, Yami Marek, and Bakura, all metaphorical, of course, to keep healthy. To me, nothing comes between my brothers and I think that mentality is definitely something I got out of Kaiba." Nicely said, Wham Bam Duel. Yeah.
Yeah, well observed, well thought out, good examples.
Yeah.
And absolutely true. Absolutely correct.
I do love the fact that approach to the character also registered. That's something that I've talked about in playing Kaiba, is that, yes, you might not appreciate his choices of how he does things, but you will appreciate his motivation.
Absolutely. It's honorable.
Yes.
And that sense of loyalty to be willing to be unliked and
Yes.
still do the right thing is something that most people would be very uncomfortable with.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And those people aren't even cartoons.
All right, your turn. Would you reach into our...
well, I wanted to say one more thing.
Yeah, sorry.
About Wham Bam Duel.
Yeah.
I'm not offended at all that Seto is the favorite character here. And I try to put myself in the position of being an audience member of that kind of age range at that time. And I totally think that I would have liked Kaiba more. Just he's more edgy and interesting and that sort of a thing. But yeah, he's also honorable and you've spoken many times about how these are rivals. There's not really a villain, that everyone's redeemable. And I think that exists, of course, in Takahashi's work to begin with.
I agree.
That you do such a good job of understanding that and realizing that's where the character
thank you.
is coming from.
I love the fact that that focus that I do put on the character comes through. Working against, of course, the animation that's there and whatever other dynamics are there to still have that continuity. To shine through is great. And plus, I have to say, it's not always easy to play the hero. It's not. I mean, you do a fantastic job with Yugi and Atem, but it's not always easy because sometimes people are like, oh, it's too squeaky clean. It's too, it's one-dimensional,
Sure.
But it's not at all.
And the hero is much more predictable.
Yeah,
usually.
But you also play a dual personality hero, and that's very complicated.
All right, well, this next letter is coming to us from who I will only name as Megan. And Megan says, so my story is that because of Yu-Gi-Oh!, I met my best friend, and we created a bond because of it. The English version means so much to us. Her favorite is Kaiba, and mine is Yami/Yugi. And I lost my grandpa in 2020, and if it wasn't for watching the English dub, I would be in a major dark place. Though I have seen Yu-Gi-Oh! Since I was 8 years old, I also would love to meet you both sometime, but I have major anxiety, and I can't even do the online cons either. I would prefer to meet you both in person, somehow.
Wow.
So, Megan, I would love to meet you too.
Yes.
And I know that Eric would also.
Yes.
And I really appreciate that someone who faces the challenges you have regarding the anxiety is still checking in with us on our podcast. And maybe there's something we can figure out. Maybe there's a way to work around that. You said that even the online con things don't work for you, but I would love to explore finding a solution to this barrier, this boundary. But I commend you for reaching past that to reach out to us and share with us what it is that this show has meant to you and how it's helped you through times that are troubling. And certainly anybody can relate to grief, and I could only assume that your grandpa was somebody that you held very dear. And 2020 is not a long time ago. It's a long road to learn how to live without somebody we are used to always having around. So if the show helped you get through that, I'm humbled and glad to be a part of that. Obviously, everyone finds certain things that are specific to their own perspective, but Eric and I have often heard the story that this show helped them find their best friend. Isn't that right, Eric?
Yeah, definitely, and that's wonderful. I mean, not taking the fact that this is a cartoon for granted. It's this is a catalyst to bringing people together, and especially someone who like Megan is saying that they have major anxiety about meeting people or being around people, but this show was something that was able to bring them together, and that's wonderful. That's great to hear.
As an independent production company, Andromeda greatly benefits from the support of its audience. If you're able to contribute as little as $1 a month, consider going to our Patreon page. Any support you can give means a lot to us creators, and we're excited to bring you more. Visit AndromedaProductions.com and see what's in store. If this is content you enjoy, please like, subscribe, and share on YouTube.
Yeah, I think whether people are connected because of the game and they went on to duel and created relationships that way, versus people who never even picked up a deck of cards but connected over the show itself. I have heard again and again how these relevant relationships were made through this show. And certainly we never anticipated anything like that when we were recording.
Not at all.
And neither of us will take credit for that either.
No.
It's what people do with these things that makes them meaningful. But this reminds me of an experience. I shared this recently on Twitter. It only happened a few weeks ago when I was appearing with so many other Yu-Gi-Oh! Actors, and we were in Connecticut. One of the fans, and this is a guy who is probably in his later 20s, so he was probably watching the show, right when it came out as a very young boy. And he was having a hard time speaking. He was so overwhelmed with emotion. He was choked up and trembling a bit. And this happens to us from time to time. People will have this overwhelming emotional reaction. And what was going on for him was that he was holding on to a card that he wanted me to sign. But the significance of the card was that it was given to him by a friend he had back from that time, a grade school friend, that he never saw again.
Wow.
That moved away, and sure, there were cell phones and email at that time, but it's not like kids that age are exchanging their contact info,
Right, true.
Unless the parents are involved, it's very easy to lose track of someone from that time. And from that stage of your life in general, and also from the early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
So, and another thing that I observed about this young man was that his father was with him, standing off to the side, and I could tell as this young man, as he was going through this, struggling through this emotional interaction, that his father was feeling every part of it. Because his father has grown up with his son, missing this friend for however long.
Right.
And it's a heartbreaking story. Whatever that friendship really was, it's clear that it left such an impact on this young man. And in the absence of having that friend actually there with him, this card has come to take on all that meaning for him.
Wow.
And me signing it, I think, was a way that he could do something to honor that friendship that he cherishes so much, and maybe hopefully provide him some closure or feeling of completeness with it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, these experiences that we have when we are at these events is it's hard to explain to people. When people have come along with me to their first convention or whatever to see what this is all about, they're usually blown away by the connection that we have with the fandom. It's it's just it moves us. It definitely moves us. And this is a very touching letter, and also your very touching story. Like these are tales of life, of people's experiences that are. It's not just a card game. It's not just a cartoon. And I'm so thankful that we are a part of all of that. That sounds like an amazing experience. And next time he should bring a card for me to sign so that he can have a matching set. But it can be a new one. It can be a new card.
It's always a competition.
Got to keep it fresh.
Well, Megan, thank you for sending that in, and thanks for watching since you were 8 years old. That's really magical, and I'm so glad that you were able to find your best friend and that the show continues to offer you some comfort in times that are hard. So, and Eric and I are going to put some thought into how we can make this connection happen. So we have your email. So we'll see what we can come up with. All right, so that's letter number 2. Let's see what else we have.
Yep, hold on. Okay.
Do you mind reaching into that mailbag again?
Yep, hold on. Here's this
We're
one.
gonna put in some sound effects of mail being sorted through.
All right, here's the next one. Oh, this is an interesting one. I will read it, but it's directed for you here.
Okay.
This is from Brian. Brian says, "Hello. I'm a small-scale comic artist / animator working on a project. I can't find an agent or contact page for Dan Green.
Because I am mysterious and always will be."
I was going to say, right? I just finished a great session with Mike Pollock. Oh, good old Mike. Yes, a good friend
Love
of ours.
Mike.
Yes, and thought Dan would be able to contribute a voice or two to my series as well. If Dan receives this message, which of course he is right now since I'm reading it, I'm curious about a rate for a short voiceover session. I'm attaching a link to the pilot for the series. The remaining ones will be an animated comic. Thanks for your time, and I hope to hear from you. Now, I will say this before you answer. We're not going to talk money numbers, but maybe you can explain to Brian how someone who is starting out, who is trying to work on a project, who obviously is doing this and taking it very seriously, would go about contacting actors like you.
Well, I think Brian solved that problem brilliantly. He found a way to write into something that he knew I was doing, and so for sure, I'm seeing this cross my plate, as it were. And I think he explored reasonable options, looking for an agent or a contact page. And this is basically the closest thing I have to a contact page. So yeah, that was well done. But also, I think that Brian does a good job of framing what it is that he wants to do, and the association of Mike Pollock is always a good thing. So I think that Brian is representing himself very professionally here.
Yes.
Which is a good thing considering it's a professionally oriented communication.
Hey, Dan, I see that Brian has actually provided a link to his pilot.
Another professional thing that he did.
Yeah, I think we should take a quick look at it. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Wow. I was not expecting that.
I also was not expecting that.
And I love the sense of humor.
Yep.
That was very charming.
Yeah, I also like the lip flap. Was very solid.
That takes a lot of work to do. And
Yep.
all of the animation elements that Brian put in there. I have great respect for that. I understand a little bit of what that's like.
Mm-hmm. Good characters, too. I thought the villains, it's kind of scary stuff.
Those were definitely interesting.
Yeah, yep. And our hero, good stern character. I like that.
I especially liked his one of his last lines.
Yes.
That was really funny.
Yes. We don't want to spoil that for anyone. They can also watch his link as well. I mean, personally, for me, it's a little on the gory side, which, I'm not that much of I'm not afraid of that stuff when I'm watching films and TV, but I tend to not do that kind of dubbing, only because of my family-friendly audience. Some kid might love me from Pokemon and then sees my name associated with something and then tunes in and it's like, whoa!
Oh, that's not for your age group, is it?
Not to say
Not
that,
at all.
I can't do adult, more adult projects, but I try to stay away from stuff that might be either it's too sexualized or too violent, and this definitely has a little bit on the violent side.
Yeah, not so much the sexual
Not
stuff.
at all.
Yeah, I can't do adult content because I'm too immature.
That's true.
But we all knew that.
Yes.
But I appreciate your interest, Brian, and I will get back to you about that. And if you got Mike Pollock on your side, you've already made another smart choice.
Yes.
So thanks for getting in touch with us, Brian.
Thank you.
And to anybody else out there, if you got things that you're interested in, don't be shy. Let us know. That's not a promise that we'll actually do it, but we'd love to know.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll at least say something supportive, if not actually participate.
That's right.
All right. So let's move on to letter next.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from David, and the subject is Thanks from a Fan. Hello there. My name is David. And on the off chance this is seen, well, guess what, David? It has been, and now it's even being listened to. I honestly just wanted to write a little message to thank both of you for the many memories you've given me since I was a kid. I grew up with both of your voices, especially Eric in Pokemon, but also both of you in Yu-Gi-Oh! As well, so I really appreciate the nostalgia your work has given me. One thing I did want to say as well was specifically for Dan. I apologize for any bother this causes, but I was curious about something. Some time ago, I got in touch with Wayne Grayson, and he gave me the idea to send something through the mail to the Konami Cross address in New York for you. I was mostly unsure if it arrived there safely. I understand completely that you're busy, so again, I do apologize. Thank you for your time, David. David, no apologies necessary. I don't know that I've received anything from that address. I have received other things from that address, but I don't remember receiving anything from David. And I'm sorry if that's a disappointment to hear. Of course, it must be. But I don't have a address for people to mail things to me other than some of the studios that I've worked at for reasons of privacy. And this has nothing to do with the person I think that you are. But many years ago, well over 10 years ago, I had a stalker situation which involved my wife getting harassed. And I've always been very cautious about ways to get in touch with me since then. I appreciate your interest, and if you want to express what you wanted to express in that letter here on the website, the AndromedaProductions.com website, please do so. If it was something for me to sign, then I guess we'll try to make some other sort of arrangement. But I suppose we could set up a place for people to mail things if they really want us to have like a card to sign or something like that.
When we're doing the in-person events, and if it's not in a city that's near you, we understand you not being able to come there or even have a friend that could bring it to us. But every once in a while, Dan and I do the online events where you can send in to that company your personalized item for us to sign, and they coordinate all of the mailing. It just makes it a little easier, especially, I don't know about you, but I have a P.O. box that I sometimes use, but it's small, and sometimes the people have larger items to sign, and this way it's insured and all of that stuff. And so that's something to look for if we participate in some of those again in the coming year,
Yeah, that's a great point. So thank you, David. I appreciate you reaching out to us, and we'll try to find a better connection for the future. Okay, and we have one more left. Eric, I think it's your turn.
Here. Okay. Yep. Okay, this one is from Curtis, and I'm going to read the subject matter this time. It's request an interview. Which actually sounds like a statement, right? I like it.
Yes, I heard
you
command.
Request an interview. Okay, I will.
Who though? Who?
So, Curtis writes, "Hey Dan Green." I love how I'm excluded from this one. "Hey Dan Green, I was wondering if I could have an interview with you and talk about your work on Yu-Gi and some other voices that you did. Let me know if you want to schedule a time slot." Well, that's very nice. You should be very flattered that Curtis wants to interview you.
Oh, Curtis, thank you. And yes, I'd be happy to grant you an interview with me. I have a couple of others that I have lined up, and once I get through those, I'll reach out to you. Maybe it'll take me up, maybe into the new year, as this year is winding down to a close pretty quickly. But I'd be happy to discuss my work with Yugi or any of the other voices that I've done. And I have done a few other interviews that you can find online. And of course, it might be if you ask me similar questions to what other people have asked me, I'm limited to the answers that I've already given.
Right.
But I'd be happy to put a fresh new face on those responses. What are some of the questions that you get most, Eric?
Well, and that's what I was going to say. I think it's great that Curtis wants to interview you, and yes, it's always interesting to hear from someone who's been in the business, what their tips are, and obviously we talk about a lot of that stuff in our podcast. But I find it even more interesting to touch upon that stuff, but also ask questions that maybe are unexpected. To sort of broaden that. And it's not to say that we've done the same interview many, many times, and that if you did YouTube, interview with Eric Stuart about Yu-Gi-Oh!, interview with Dan Green about Yu-Gi-Oh!, you would see very similar answers because it's all very similar questions, which is still flattering that people want to know that. But
For sure.
if you are going to reach out to us, and remember, we're trying to juggle 900 things in our crazy lives, as we all are.
Yes, please don't be offended if it takes us a while.
Yes.
It's not that we think that we're better than other people. We're just taking care of a lot of things.
Yes. And so with all that going on, and people are asking for these interviews, which is great, it's very flattering, is that if you're going to stand out with us, you present it in a way that maybe we're talking about some additional things. Maybe your approach is going to be something that when it is finished and it's put online or whatever, it is a little different than what we've answered before. Because I would want to ask if I met an actor that I loved from a certain project, I would love to ask them about what else do they do for fun, or what,
right?
Just to find out, get a bigger picture of of who they are.
Right. What don't I know about you?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
If you are an interviewer, that should be your goal to not only introduce a person to your audience, but educate them with something they didn't know. And I think that's fun. I think that's a lot of fun. So so thank you, Curtis, for asking Dan and not me. But whatever. I get it.
You made the right choice, Curtis. You really did. I mean, if you've been listening to this podcast, you can tell.
That's right.
Right. Where people start to fall asleep.
That's right.
It's when Eric talks.
Good.
I also want to add, Eric, to what you're saying. Do you have a knowledge of that show, Hot Wings?
Correction. Dan meant to say hot ones.
So people... Okay, so I think that's the name of it. I see it on YouTube. And so part of the gimmick of the show is that the interviewer and the guest eat a series of hot wings with escalatingly more hot sauce.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that guy, almost everyone who goes on that show, and these are people who get interviewed all the time, they always say you ask the best questions because he finds the ones that are uncommon. Mm-hmm. And it's not just that they're uncommon, but they're also insightful questions. They put the person who's being interviewed in the position of not only talking about something that they don't usually talk about, which is refreshing, but talking about something where they feel like, oh, thank you for paying attention, thank you for doing your homework, because that actually is something that matters to me, and I'd like to expound on that.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's cool. And as we bring this letters episode to a close with this letter about interviews, and we're in the context of the heart of the cards, part of the reason we wanted to create this podcast was to have a bigger conversation, which is not to say that we don't like having the conversations that we have more regularly, but we wanted to be able to have a conversation in a way that is more expansive, and hopefully people have learned more about us than they would have in a circumstance like a convention where we have a panel for a few minutes or so on and so forth.
Yes, especially for those that want to follow their own path of creativity and only think of us as, those two guys, they're voice actors. I liked watching them on those shows that I grew up with, and that's who we are. Hopefully by learning more about who we are as people, it might help you get through your own journey because of the examples that we're giving you from our own lives. So that as to Curtis and those that are going to follow the interviewer path, if that's something that they like to do, think about that. Think about how you can put the questions to people so that the listener really gets a better sense of that person, because if they are someone that they are inspired by, it might even help them be more inspired by them, hearing about the rest of their lives beyond what it was like. Or you asked me like a question I'm always asked, like, can I still do the voice of Seto Kaiba? Now, the answer is yes. Okay,
it's getting him to stop.
I'm going to say exactly. I'm going to save you some time. Yes, I can do that. I can do Brock. I can do James, and I can even do Squirtle.
Oh man, I have no doubt. And another thing about the heart of the cards, this journey that we're all going through, Eric and I don't think that you should look up to us. We think that some people will listen to what we say because they admire, something that we did from here or there. But we're all going through this journey together. And, a conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what you're dealt is just another way of saying we all have things that we want to do and things that can get in the way of that, things that can help with that, or things that exist completely outside of that. And then we have to find some way of dealing with that as well. So,
Well, it's great. I think it's fantastic that people are sending in letters and asking us questions and sharing their stories.
Yeah.
And it's great that we have an opportunity to read them on our show for them.
Yeah. And we encourage more of this letter sharing thing. So if you have anything that you want to contribute to this conversation, please don't hesitate to go to AndromedaProductions.com and write it down there. Also, you can tweet us something. I think we have some leftover tweets from the memorial episode with Kazuki Takahashi that we still want to be able to address and provide our followers a chance to hear their own words shared in this group context, this community of fans that we are so fortunate to be a part of. So, with that, let's draw this letters episode of The Heart of the Cards to a close. Thank you, Eric, as always.
Thank you, Dan.
And we'll look forward to the next time that we can continue this conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what you're dealt. Till next time.
Thanks for listening to The Heart of the Cards with Dan Green and Eric Stuart. We hope this conversation in some way spoke to you. Whatever your journey, we look forward to crossing paths again in the next episode. This is Veronica Taylor, and on behalf of Andromeda Productions, we wish you well.
Andromeda, always a sound choice.